there, folks. Talkin' Baseball is back. Situation is not quite what we expected our sixth season to be. This is season 6, episode 1.
Coming to you all shaggy-haired and social distance from Lunenburg house, not the studio, but we're making the best of a bad situation here.
We had a show all lined up for about the middle of March, talking about the Red Sox prospects and things that happened over the winter. But something's happened over the spring that has kind of made this a little bit change.
So we are in the midst of the COVID-19 virus pandemic right now, and we are supposed to keep our social distance, which we're doing right now, hence the wide frame. Might not be our best angle, but we'd rather do this than just not have a show at all, because you're probably sick of looking at the same show for the last 4 months that's been airing endlessly.
And unfortunately, our tech is going to be somewhat limited, right, because our studio up in Passios Elementary School is closed for the duration, and our able director, Joe McLaughlin, has been banned from the building.
Yes.
And so we don't have the opportunity to see ourselves in the monitor and to see her cheery face, and
but we're doing the best we can.
This is actually the way we started out. I think the first show we did was filmed in the cellar of this building.
It was.
We were talking about moving down the cellar, so at least we moved up back. We used to shoot against the fireplace.
Right.
Now we're sort of against the back
you
wall.
get the different angle today.
Yeah.
This is a retro show. Back to our roots, I guess. Is how we're going today.
Our fans, I think, are probably tired of seeing episode 10 of season 5, which has been running continuously since mid-December.
Yeah, we're sick of it ourselves. So here we are doing our best to try to bring you some fresh entertainment from all of you out in the cable land who watch us.
And as is very evident, this is uncharted territory for us and most of the rest of the world.
This is unprecedented. There has never been a shutdown of every sport simultaneously in the history of the country. This is something completely new to everyone.
Pretty much shut down everything. And what we'd like to talk about for a while is just the impact that has had not only on the sport, but on the society that we so much enjoy.
In general. Yeah.
For the last, I want to say 50 years, whenever Channel 38 began.
Yes, WSBK TV 38, yes.
For my entire adult life, from April to October, I've watched baseball every single night. It has just been part of my life. And other things might go on. I might be reading, might be talking on the phone, might be playing puzzles. The Red Sox have been on TV.
Absolutely. Or the radio in the background in the days before SBK showed
always watching baseball.
Always watching
all summer long. We didn't miss a game. Literally didn't miss a game.
Right.
So now we go through the day and do our activities. 8 o'clock comes around, and from 8 to 11, I am lost.
What do we do?
What do we do? There's something missing here.
Right.
And you search around for some, on the TVs, they're playing games that were played in 1985, just to try to fill the place, because the poor baseball channel.
Oh, Nesson and ESPN and MLB Network, what are they going to do for something like this? All they can do is sort of go in the back catalog and get past games.
And they hired guys like Kevin Millar and the Screaming Guy for the off 6 months. And now they've got nothing to do. They have no scheduling, but they're going to fill 24 hours.
Right. So.
I heard today they're going to start showing games live from South Korea.
Yes, they are. Yes, South Korea is up and running in their professional league, and they've actually aired some games from South Korea. So if you want live baseball, they're about 12 hours ahead of us if you can figure out how to do that.
It's made it so clear what part of our lives sports occupy.
Yeah, it really is.
Especially here, like we missed March, which means we missed the Bruins' conclusion of the season where they were winning. Right. Conclusion of the Celtics season, NCAA's, Masters Golf Tournament, the Start of Baseball. There's 5 things, 5 entertainments gone.
5 major sports. And it's never been all at once. We've had season strikes of one sport or something like that, and there's sort of an ebb and flow of sports seasons, but never has anything been shut down all at once. and it's bizarre. It's sort of an empty feeling that, even on the days when the Sox weren't playing, they had an off day or something like that.
You watch another game.
You can watch another game, or the Bruins were playing, or the
listen
Celtics
to
were
all
playing.
the talk shows.
Right.
What are the talk shows going to talk about now? Like, what are we going to talk about?
I haven't listened to talk radio in months because what are they going to? What's the subject? What do you bring up? So it's something that's, it's not, when we talk all the time about it's a business, and it is. It essentially is a business.
Yeah.
But it's also something that is social. People have a connection through sports where they may not have a connection otherwise, and that's so pertinent right now because there are so many people who are just dying for baseball right now.
You couldn't say it better. I have a dozen friends in this town that our only connection is baseball.
Right.
So whenever I see him,
Yep.
we are pro or con Red Sox or argue about
Sure.
different players.
Sure.
And they age. Some of the elderly ladies up at the senior center, hey Pete, what do you think of Mookie's trade? And then there's all kinds of connections that people have because of sports, because the teams create a regional pride.
They do.
That's what it's all about. You go to see a Red Sox game in the playoffs. There's 35,000 people there, and they're all together on the same thing.
Yes, yeah.
Take those 35,000 people out to talk about anything else, and they're beating each other up.
Right.
So there's Democrats and Republicans and elderly and young and racial mixtures all together.
All together for one
supporting
common
the
thing.
same common thing.
And in the age of social media, it's even more important. I know on Facebook, I have friends who are Facebook friends purely through baseball, and that's it. That's completely how I know these people. So, in the age of social media, you find out how widespread it is. The Red Sox are a worldwide team. They have fans in hundreds of countries around the world, which in the age of social media is unbelievable. I mean, we have people that are watching games and streaming games from halfway around the world and watching it at the same time you are.
Right.
And there's something so unifying about that. These are people who are stationed in Iraq, say, that are fighting a war, but they're watching the game at the same time you are. There's something that's really profound about that. And it's gone. It's gone just because of this whole unprecedented COVID.
And this regional pride extends especially to the Red Sox, Yankees, the big teams. But when we were in Chicago, we didn't realize how much they hated the Cardinals.
Oh.
When we were in St. Louis, we didn't realize how much they hated the Cubs.
Right.
I mean, it's a real tangible thing.
When we were in Philly, the Phillies fans hate the Mets. They can't stand the Mets. And the Blue Jays, of course, hate the Yankees because everybody except the Yankees hates the Yankees. But it's so true, and it's not just here. This is just the Red Sox we're talking about. There are 30 teams that have, well, maybe not Tampa Bay, but the other 29, or maybe not Miami.
I met a guy that was a Tampa Bay fan.
Really?
Yeah.
There is one. They do exist.
I think he still exists.
So 28 of the 30 teams actually have a ton of regional pride and history, and it's like you said, it's something that everybody every walk of life comes together for those 3 hours every night. And not just the fans in the stand, the millions of people that are watching on Nesson or Fox or whatever network is on, and for 3 hours you're all part of the same thing.
And look what happens when a championship is won.
Oh, God.
4 million people come to Boston to stand 30 deep, watch a floating duck boat go by, and go, wow!
And you can wave at Mookie for 10 seconds, and everybody loves it.
And what else could draw like that?
Nothing.
You think a politician could?
Nothing.
You could,
Nothing.
an inventor?
Nothing like that.
I taught school, and I think once in a while somebody will say, hi, Mr. Lincoln, but I'm not going to get the entire town out. Like,
But it just goes to show that how deep the roots are, and this is something that isn't just us. It's generations worth of fans. I mean, this is something that used to unite parents and grandparents, and they'd have a big discussion about, oh, what do you think about the Sox today? And I get text messages from family members during the game. Oh, that stunk. Oh, that was great. And and that connection is missing, and it's just weird.
And I'll tell you what that's going to lead into. This current generation is going to see no baseball. no sports. The kids aren't going to have players to emulate.
Right.
And what's that going to do? It's going to turn them off.
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is.
If this goes on for any period of time,
Of course it is.
there's nobody for the kids to emulate. They'll find other things to do.
Especially baseball, because baseball has so struggled to keep a young audience. Like, I was going to teach my son, he's 7 right now, I was going to teach him how to score a game this season. You know, he's old enough to understand the concept and everything, and I can't do that with him now. And that's something that once a kid finds a connection to baseball, it's going to be there forever. And when there's nothing to connect to, you're right, they move on to other things. They move on to Wii and video games and social media and other kinds of things like that. And the idea of a sport is just lost on them.
That's right. I mean, we can't wait to come back to it.
Right.
They have nothing to come back to.
Right. Yeah, there's no connection there that they have that unifies them, and it's really it kind of blows your mind. You can't put it into words just how strange this feeling is right now.
I mean, they have talked about trying to play games with no fans.
Right.
But the whole point of the game is to have
fans, right? It's because it's all about the fans. I mean, the owners, yes, the owners have the money and they'll pay the players, but the whole other aspect of it is the fans and the business of the fans and the business of getting people into the park is what makes a sport. You can't have a sport in a bubble. There has to be some kind of rooting interest for a sport.
I just read a story about the one time they did that. Do you remember when there was the riot in Baltimore?
I remember that, and they had the game with no fans.
Game with no fans.
I remember that.
And the players said there was nothing to energize them.
Right.
You know?
Of course.
And there was a few scouts in the fans.
Right.
And the camera people, but it was like it was bizarre.
Yeah, I totally remember that.
You hit a home run and it's quiet.
And nobody cheers. Or even if you're the opposition, you feed off the negative energy as well. Sure. And it goes both ways. I do, yeah, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. I remember that. And it's just a bizarre feeling. So I really don't think that's a solution to fixing everything. So,
well, let's move on now to the economic impact.
And and globally, this is a bigger thing than even the social impact here.
But just take baseball; it's catastrophic to them.
It really is.
How much money do you think the owners are losing?
Oh, unbelievable amounts of money, and
just the owners themselves.
The owners themselves, and when you think about when we talk about sports as a business, which we always do. There are so many people think about the owners and the players, and that's the most obvious one because that's what we see all the time. But there are also people who work at the park, the vendors, the ushers, ticket salespeople. There are people that work in the souvenir stores. There are the people on the street selling peanuts. There are the people who make the uniforms. There are the people that create the schedules. These are all people, and not just at the major league, at every level, from major leagues down to single A. These are all jobs that people have, and these people are out of a job right now. They have no job whatsoever.
If you picked up a newspaper lately, there's about 4 pages left to it.
Yeah,
right. The reporters have no jobs.
Right, yes,
the announcers have no jobs.
Right.
And the TV obviously has none.
Right.
And even like the ushers in the parks,
completely out of a job, and it's something that I know teams are owners are donating money to try to help and make a difference, but it's not going to help you long term. It's really not. I mean, and these are people who rely on that. And it's a seasonal income anyway for a lot of these people, and then you take away that season.
How about the people that make the baseballs,
right?
Make the bats,
right?
Make the uniforms,
and so you don't think about how. What a big machine the business of baseball is until you break it down and look at every employee, not just at the majors, at every single level.
Right.
I mean, I live 5 minutes from the Lowell Spinners Park, and that's going to be devastating to that team. They were already in trouble. That we may have seen the last Spinners game at this point because the last thing they needed was a season where nothing happened.
I called Gordon Eads, our good friend that works as the Red Sox historian, to find out what kind of pay the players are getting. The top paid players, the $1 million players, make $5,000 a day.
Right.
That sounds like a lot, but that works out to $850,000 a year. Instead of 30
instead
million.
of 30 million, right?
And the lower players make $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's $180,000 a year. The major league minimum is $600,000.
Right. So they're working at a third of the minimum of a major leaguer, which, okay, so people are going to jump in and say, they're still rich. But so what? That's still a huge economic blow for them, too.
Right.
It's a huge blow for them.
The players aren't sitting on getting rich, and I understand that so far, May 26th is as far as they've been guaranteed that.
Right, yeah.
Like I said, Gordon's the historian.
Yeah.
He's been guaranteed pay until May 26th.
And after that, who knows? Who knows? And in our state, I think May 18th is what they're aiming for. Well, if they have to push it back another 2 weeks, then that's past May 26th. That's past Memorial Day. So who knows?
So that's just the economic challenge.
Right. That's the dollars and cents challenge, not the social one.
Another thing that I think, if they start playing baseball on July 4th, you're not going to get 35,000 people to show up.
Of course not.
The long-range fear of crowds has been so instilled by people that they have to wear a mask to drive their cars.
Oh, sure.
Is going to be a huge minus. It's just a whole new mindset, the new normal, as they call it.
And think of all the people who have planned vacations around tickets to go and going to games and stuff like that, and people who are going to alter their vacations and alter their family plans. They're not going to go to a Red Sox game. And we had to push back our trip to Florida 2 weeks. Well, I guess we're not going to go to the game then, are we? It's really it's changing people's lives.
I mean, sports and concerts are really going to take a knock,
right?
Because anything where you have a jammed group,
any entertainment is
of that quantity of people,
sure.
That it's not all of a sudden they lifted the ban. Well, what the heck? I can't get sick now.
Right.
Because they've already been talking a lot about a second wave of
Oh,
the
sure.
virus.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just, I think there will be people the rest of their lives who avoid crowds.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There are some states, I think it's Georgia, just decided to lift the ban, and now they're talking about putting it down again because instantly people are getting sick all over again.
Right.
And so who knows how long this is going to go. And we were talking about social and economic, just a little side tangent. This guy was a teacher for almost 40 years. I have a son in school right now. The education system is incredibly impacted by this with remote teaching and using Zoom to do classes and things like that. So that's economic and social tied in together. Kids can't have graduations or proms right now. And
I mean, the overall impact of the world is enormous. But we're just talking about baseball.
Just baseball. Just baseball.
Yeah. What an enormous thing it's made. And as I said before, it's going to lessen the interest of kids in the sport because they can't see it play.
Sure.
They can't play Little League.
No, they can't get together in a group and even play.
Anymore. And so...
other than a batting tee in the backyard, which is what we do, that's it. That's as good as it's going to get. So something else that it ties into the economics is, we just brought it up briefly, about the players and the impact in the sport itself. Think about how this affects players' contracts and stats and things like that. We've always talked about baseball as a very stats-driven game, more than anything else. And you're going to have an entire season, or perhaps an entire season of stats missing from players' career numbers, which is... How do you make up for that? I mean, I feel so bad for somebody like the example I'm going to bring. Nick Markakis is at 2,400 something hits. He's well in his 30s. He had a shot at 3,000 hits for his career, which is the gold standard for getting in the Hall of Fame. He has almost no chance of that now with this whole season removed. Or somebody, Mookie Betts, great example. He got traded to the Dodgers for one season, and now he's a free agent after the season. Well, what if he doesn't play in 2020? How does that affect his free agent market?
Wait a minute now.
Yeah.
The way they said is your time during this counts as time. It's possible.
Right.
That he could become a free agent and the Red Sox could get him back.
Right.
And they would keep the players they got for him.
Sure.
And so he would never have played for the Dodgers.
But I'm talking in terms of the dollar deals,
Yes.
that players are not going to get $30 million a year this free agent season, because the owners are going to say, oh, we can't afford that. We don't know what you did last season. And so the free agent market is incredibly
And a
affected
year
by
off
this.
would just impact them physically.
Oh, of course it could. Positively or negatively. I mean, it helps the Red Sox because Sale had Tommy John surgery and he gets to miss that year anyway. And it helps somebody
I
like...
suppose in a way that's good.
Well, it helps with Verdugo, who wasn't going to start the season anyway, and now he said he feels great. So it could be, it could benefit you, but it's also a huge loss to especially some of the aging players who are really looking for milestones in their
And for
careers.
the younger players, it costs them a year of development.
Oh, and it costs them a year of tenure too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
I mean the minor league players.
Sure.
The colleges are not playing.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do you hold a draft if the guy hasn't played?
You draft based on the junior year of stats. It's amazing how many careers this is going to affect stats-wise.
Yep.
In such a stats-driven sport, it's we talk about career WAR and career hits and career home runs and things like that, and you sort of almost have to put an asterisk next to the guys who are going to be impacted by this.
Right.
So it's not like they took a year off because they were hurt or they were free agents and didn't want to sign. They couldn't play.
And what's going to happen to guys like Ron Chandler?
Right, yeah.
Who puts out this analysis of all the stats for the season.
Right.
There's not going to be it.
There's nothing to analyze for the year.
Skip a year. The back of the baseball cards, 2020, just is gone.
It's gone. Yeah, it's completely gone.
I don't believe they'll play this year.
I don't think so either. I don't think there's any way on a national scale you can get these games to happen with different states having different deadlines for lifting bans and things like that. I agree. I just don't see it. I really don't. And I think it's going to get to a point where even the players are going to say, forget it. Let's just skip this year and move on to 2021.
So this has been a pretty depressing show so far.
Yeah, we're here to put you in a great mood.
So what I thought we would do is, for the rest of the hour, talk about the show that we were going to.
Right, this would have been the March show.
This was going to be the March show. Before, it is amazing how we were about to do it.
We were.
Just as we were. I had a heart valve replacement during the winter, and I said, okay, the first thing we're going to do, once I'm healthy again, is go back and do Talkin Baseball.
And we were days away from doing it, and then we couldn't do it.
I think we'll break into the trivia question, though.
Okay, great, yes.
For those of you who haven't watched all our shows, we used to do a general trivia question, but now it's called Stump Jason.
Yes, I put on the spot once a month.
Jason is the Ken Jennings of baseball trivia, and so we try to come up with some question that at least they could consider a little bit. He mentioned a little while ago that there has been stoppages of play before because of strikes, players' contracts strikes, and businesses about certain items in the contract. 3-4 times that's happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the only other time in 150 years of baseball that the government shortened the season?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I will think about that.
Only once has the government actually, other than baseball folks, caused the season to be less than a full season.
I will think about that. Okay. I have an idea. I'm not sure that it's right, though.
His idea is
my
Okay, here's the first thing, and I think this is interesting stuff.
This is, I agree.
They've always been tinkering with baseball. That's okay. It doesn't have to be the way it was in 1912 forever. They used to have sacrifice flies. They didn't used to have the DH.
Right.
They used to be able to, skip second base. The
pitchers used to pitch every inning.
And so the big concern, more and more, has been time. We live in a time now where
instant gratification is not quick enough.
It takes too long for instant gratification. People want to just,
getting a tweet out is not quick enough.
As we said many times, we could watch a doubleheader and wish there was a third game.
Right.
So what they've tried to do is come up with some new procedures or rules that will speed the game up.
Right, and they've been slowly been getting them into the game. Like there's the whole thing with the mound visits, which we talked about at length, and other ways to try to cut down on just what they call dead time in the middle of a game.
So there are half a dozen. I think we talk about the pros and cons and see what our audience thinks. I think probably the most revolutionary or most unusual, most in some ways dangerous, is that when you bring in a relief pitcher, he must face at least 3 batters or complete
the inning. Yes.
And unless he is injured,
right,
he can't be removed for another pitcher until he has faced 3 batters. Doesn't have to get him out.
Right.
But he has to face 3 batters.
With the
idea being that you can't bring in a lefty to face a lefty,
right,
and then bring in a righty to face a righty.
Yeah.
And in one World Series game, there were 4 different pitches or 1 inning.
Right.
This would speed the game up.
In theory, it would speed it up. So the days of Tony Fossis and Mark Ripchinsky are over. You don't have those situational guys that come in just to face a lefty. Or Mike Myers in the Sox
just to face a righty.
Right. You can't do that anymore.
The Tony Fossis.
Yes.
Pitched until he's 70.
Right. Or Jesse Orozco pitched till he was almost 50 because he could get lefty.
So that's a change. So what do you think of the minuses of that?
The minuses are, well, if a guy just doesn't have it that day, you're stuck with him for 3 batters. I mean, that's the obvious downside of it. I mean, especially late in a tight game. If you're playing the Yankees and you're ahead 2-1 and you bring it, and I'm just going to pull a name out of a hat here, and you bring in Taylor to face the Yankees, and it's obvious from the get-go, first 2 pitches, the guy just doesn't have it. You're stuck with him for 3 batters. Right. I mean, I think that's an obvious downside in a tight game. If it's a manager just wasting time to lengthen the game and try to mess around a little bit, that's one thing. But if a guy just doesn't have it, I think you should be able to just go get the guy. I mean, that's just me. I would rather have the game impacted by different pitchers than just one guy who's just going to take his lumps just for the sake of a rule. That seems a little silly to me.
If I were a manager of a team and such a rule is in, I'd practice faking the injury.
Yes, yeah.
Oh no!
Oh jeez! Oh my God! Oh jeez! And the idea is you cut down on the time because every pitching change is an ad, and you have to bring the guy in, and he gets his it's 12 warm-up pitches or whatever it is, and it does take forever. And especially a couple of years ago, the notorious one was our friend Tito Francona when he was managing the Indians. He had 4 guys, I think, that had over 70 appearances out of the bullpen, and every single game he just mixed and matched batter by batter the last 3 innings.
I'd rather make a rule how long it takes the guy to get from the bullpen to the mound.
Right.
He has to make it in 15 seconds, or he comes in with a 2-ball count.
Right, that's something.
Some of you remember Lee Smith. Lee Smith would be eating a sandwich out there, and they would go from daylight savings to standard savings.
or who was the one that was I might have been Smith when they'd wave him in and he would nod and take another 2 pitches in the bullpen before he even walked out to come in. And so I mean I honestly. Well, we'll get into this with the roster. I don't think it's going to affect the Red Sox that much because I don't think they have those situational guys that you're only going to have for a few hitters. The closest they have to somebody like that is, you bring in Hembry in the middle innings for a couple guys, and that's it. But he finishes the inning. Yeah. He never gets left out to dry like that. And same thing, Taylor's a lefty, but he's not really a situational lefty. So I don't think the Red Sox it's going to be that big a deal. But other bullpens, it will affect them quite a bit.
If there's 2 outs.
Right.
And you got a guy that can shoot and get that 1 lefty out.
Sure.
It would still be the same thing.
Sure, it would be.
But that doesn't delay the game because then there's the inning.
Right, the inning's over. Right. So I'm not sure how much that time that's going to save. I really don't. And like I said, I would love to give the managers the flexibility that if a guy just doesn't have it that day, get him the heck out of there. I mean, you'd hate to see a game lost by a rule like that's just recently been enacted.
What they're doing also is adding a 26th player to the regular roster.
Yes, because of this. Because you're going to need the extra
26 players, which means you can carry an extra pitcher.
An extra pitcher.
I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But you can carry up to 13 pitchers.
But guess what? If you have an extra pitcher, there's an extra pitching change. So there goes the time you're saying.
That's a change.
So.
The other change they made about rosters, though, is from the 1st of September through the end of the season, you can only carry 28 men.
Instead of the usual...
Instead of 40. You could carry 40 before, and teams that were out of it would bring up all the kids,
all the scrubs,
take a look at them, and so when a team that was in contention played them, you'd blow them off.
Right. Oh, if you had the Orioles on your schedule in September, that was just easy pickings right there. Because I mean, they stunk anyway.
What's the point of playing their regular players at that point? Try the other guys and see how they look.
Right. And it was something I actually thought that the Players Association would give a little pushback on this because that does affect tenure of some people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because once you make that jump to major leagues, you get that tenure for life. That's a huge difference. If you're in the majors for one day, you get that lifelong paycheck from MLB. You're a tenured player from the union. So, but I don't think the Players Union really had a choice because I think in terms of just having a competitive game, it's better to have the 28 people than the 40. It really is. And again, pitching changes. I mean, how many games did you see they bring in like 5 rookies in a row for the last inning?
Well, they can now add 14 pitchers.
Right.
So when they add the 2 new guys, one of them can be a pitcher.
One can be a pitcher.
So now you've got 14 pitchers out of 28.
Remember the days when they had 9 pitchers on the staff? Remember those days?
I hope no one passes gas in the dugout.
Right. Well, don't have Tony Pena on the team then. So, but remember the days when it was 4, maybe 5 starters, and you had 4, maybe 5 guys out of the bullpen, and that was your pitching staff.
Yeah, and you always would have 3 catchers.
Always 3 catchers,
and many more infielders and outfielders.
Sure.
This really tamps that down.
Right, and it puts a lot of strain on the everyday position players because that sort of Brock Holt utility guy is sort of becoming a lost thing because you just don't have room on your roster for those backup guys. You have to pretty much go with your regulars every single day. Whereas, especially in the National League, when you have pinch hitters and things like that, you need that roster flexibility. You don't have it.
Now, this next one, I think, has been brought about by some farcical innings. No longer can you bring in a position player to pitch unless he has been designated a two-way player, and he has to have pitched and played in the field both a certain number of innings prior to that.
Right. You have to declare it ahead of time. This is my guy if it's a blowout. So you can't, like in the playoff game against the Yankees when Holt hit for the cycle and he hit it off his home run off a position player. You can't do that anymore. You
can't bring Canseco when the blowers on and he thinks it would be cool to pitch.
Right. So and the funny thing is that you think that wouldn't happen as often with the bigger pitching staffs, but actually it does because you have all these openers and all this stuff where you're bringing guys in for 1 or 2 innings and just shuffling the decks.
Well, there were a lot of possibilities.
Oh, sure.
Occasionally a guy would come in and get him out 1, 2, 3 and he'd be a hero.
Oh, I remember.
Usually they get clobbered.
Oh, remember the game? What was I think it was the Bobby Valentine year when the Sox were awful and Chris Davis pitched 2 shutout innings against him and got a win. Remember that one? I mean, that's how bad that team was. So occasionally you have a guy, but usually you're bringing a position player and he gets blasted for 4 or 5 runs just to fall on the sword so somebody else doesn't have to come in.
They try not to make anything in the sport a farce.
Right.
The best they can is going to keep it within the way the game ought to be played.
Right.
And very few guys. All these guys probably pitched in high school.
Oh, sure they did. I'm sure they did.
League someplace. Yeah. But there's a little difference between throwing 88 and 98.
Yeah, and high schoolers versus professional players.
and 2 others, the injured list now has to be 15 days rather than 10 because a lot of players were utilizing that just to get around a turn. So if a pitcher's got a sore arm, we'll put him on the injured list, he misses 1 turn.
Right.
Or almost no turns.
And you don't lose the roster spot. The Dodgers were the ones that really kick-started this because what the Dodgers were doing, exactly what you said, they were just shuffling the pitching staff and putting guys on the 10-day IL all the time. And so you'd have 1 guy, but you wouldn't lose that player because you just bring someone up to replace him. And they essentially, instead of a 12-man staff, had like a 14-man staff, like we were talking about, just because you could shuffle that 10-day thing. Now, with 15, 5 days doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. It's an extra turn in the rotation for the starters. And if 2 weeks for a reliever is actually quite a bit. That's 4 or 5 appearances when you think about it. So there's a little less roster monkeying, but that ties into the whole extra player on the roster. You don't have to do that as much.
And the last, I saved the best one for last.
Yes.
Now, it had been you had 30 seconds to decide whether you would challenge a call. So when the guy is out by a mini hair at second base, and you have to go back and check the video and get the players off the ball.
Or did the guy step on the base, or did he miss the base?
So instead of having 30 seconds to decide, you now have 20 seconds.
Yes.
20 seconds. You save 10 seconds.
Save that 10 seconds. And you can only have 3 challenges in a game, so save that 30 seconds for the game.
So now you've saved a half a minute.
Yes, half a minute. That's very impactful when it comes to a 3.5 hour
I wonder
game.
how long they debated that.
Oh my God, I have no idea.
I can just see the guys in the office down in New York. Now, let's see.
Okay.
How can we save 30 seconds?
Let's see. And when does the 20 seconds start? From the time that the play is called, or how do you determine when that 20 seconds starts? Who knows?
That doesn't say. It must be. I would think after the call.
But as soon as the call happens, they have the 20 seconds.
And there should be a big clock on the wall.
Right,
So you've got this much time.
And what's really interesting is that, so as you know, the Red Sox had a scandal in the offseason, as other teams did, about looking at monitors and stealing signs. There was a whole big kerfuffle about that, with certain teams doing it. But kerfuffle, yeah. If you watch Judge Judy, she uses kerfuffle all the time. So
that was not a senior vocabulary.
No, it was not. No. But baseball's trying to have it both ways here. Think about it. Oh, you don't want them to use the monitors, but you only have 20 seconds to make the call whether you want to challenge it. Well, pick your poison there, because if you don't want them using the monitors, how do you cut the time that they have access to the monitor to try to make that decision? It sort of doesn't make sense to me about that. It just seems like it doesn't make sense.
So those are all the changes. There's actually quite a few.
There are quite a few.
A lot of different things were involved in there.
But I think the 3-batter minimum rule is by far the most impactful one.
That's right.
And I'm curious to see how that's going to affect teams. That's going to tie into the whole bullpen construction and the whole opener thing that we've talked about many times. And so do you have 2 openers now? Who the heck knows what's going to happen?
So we'll move on to what we're going to do ordinarily second, is go through what changes happened to the Red Sox in the off-season. But first, you've had time to ponder it now.
Okay.
Here's the trivia question again.
Okay.
What is the only time in 150 years of baseball did the government curtail a season, make any shortening? Because it has been curtailed by strikes and other problems. When did the government actually shut down the season?
This is a total guess here. I'm not sure of the year, but there was with the flu pandemic that was going around in like 1917 or 18 maybe. Does that sound right? Is it in that time frame? Is that right?
You got the right year, wrong reason.
Okay, it's the right year. Okay, was it? It wasn't an illness, or was it the war? It was a war in 1918?
1918 war. They stopped the season at Labor Day.
Okay, I knew that year was short, but I didn't know that was.
And of course,
who
won the
Who won in 1918?
And who won the World Series?
The notorious year.
Fabulous World Series game where Joe Wood beat Christy Matthews.
Yeah. Oh,
the Giants. Yeah, the government decided they would have to cut the season short.
Okay.
Because the war's still going on.
Right.
And so as of Labor Day, they cut it short, and I think they played 140.
Okay. I know it was a short season, so half credit. But am I remembering that, didn't they have some flu pandemic that year?
The Spanish flu that killed a third of the world.
Right. So, but it was the same season, right?
Much more Major League flu than this one.
Right, yes, right. So, well, right year, wrong reason.
All right. We got half of a stump. We'll have to go stumpy.
Yeah, right. So the last part of our show here is, something that we do every still preseason right now, I guess, is to try to predict and talk about who will be on the Red Sox roster. I mean, every year there are like 20 givens and a few.
Since we've seen you last, and I hope you've seen it because it's been on
for 4 months
several dozen times. Since then, we lost the key player to free agency. Rick Porcello.
Right.
Rick Porcello had been with the team for 6 years. He was the Cy Young winner one year.
Yes, he was.
Last year he had the highest ERA in the major leagues, but he was an innings eater.
Absolutely.
And, he was a free agent, and he went to the Mets.
He went to the Mets.
So that's one of the 5 starters they had last year.
Right.
Then there was this extraordinary trade that took place where they decided to dump salary, and David Price and Mookie Betts, the famous MVP Mookie Betts, went to the Dodgers for a guy named Verdugo who had no backbone, and 2 or 3 other people that I don't remember except the one's first name was Jeter.
Right, right. Jeter was the shortstop. It was essentially Verdugo and a whole bunch of
So now we're talking about David Price leaving the team and Porcello leaving the team.
And Mookie Betts leaving the team.
And then we discovered that Chris Sale was not just had a sore arm, he's going to have, and has had since we've talked to you last, Tommy John
The dreaded
surgery,
Tommy John
which
surgery.
means hopefully he'll be back by the 4th of July in 2021.
Now, for those who don't know, Tommy John surgery is generally the timeline is a year of recovery to even pitch, and then it's another year to build your strength back up. So it's essentially a 1.5 to 2 year procedure. But people have come back very strong from Tommy John surgery all the time, and so it's so there's actually kind of a good thing that they're missing time in 2020 if there's a good thing about
but
it.
if you're counting, that's 3 of our starting pitchers
That's
gone.
That's 600 innings a season,
And we have picked up no one to replace them at this point.
They got the guy Martin Martin Perez from the Twins, who's a number 5 sort of fringy guy, but essentially it's Erod and Evaldi. And that's it. Those are the 2 starters.
The bullpen has remained intact, which is great.
And some people don't agree with me on this, and I fight people on it all the time. I actually think the bullpen is a big strength on this team. I think the bullpen is a huge strength. Workman was fantastic last year. I don't know why he gets the reputation that he does. Barnes is a terrific 7th, 8th inning guy. I don't know why people are...
Taylor pitched very well.
Hembry was great until he got hurt. And Walden was just a innings eater out of the bullpen. And I honestly think that Darwinson Hernandez is going to be a relief guy. I really think he's going to be a 1 to 2 inning guy rather than a starter. And that's 6 or 7 solid guys right there. I really think that bullpen is going to be very, very good. And cheap. Nobody is getting a Kimbrel kind of salary in that bullpen.
And the only other loss from the team is more of a loss because of the kind of person he was and what he meant to the community. Brock Holt. Brock Holt. His stats really don't hold up.
No, they don't.
He had 3 homers last year.
No.
He was hurt several times. But the fact that he could play 7 positions was a great guy and did a lot to the community.
Big clubhouse Jimmy Fund guy. Yeah, he was the team representative.
And
actually.
that really has not been replaced.
No, they don't have a 7 position guy like that. Like what we mentioned before, that it's almost sort of a lost art because you have to have your position guys because you're so pitching heavy. Your everyday guys really have become everyday guys now. So those are the big losses, and honestly, other than Verdugo, there really haven't been a lot of major additions.
No.
He's been the biggest addition out of everyone.
That's right.
You know, they got it. Well, we'll go around the diamond actually. You know, I mean, we sort of ran through the.
Why don't you just run through what would probably be the starting lineup?
Well, the starting lineup would be obviously you'd have Vasquez at catching, and you would have Moreland at first.
They also lost.
Sandy Leone. Sandy Leone is gone.
Went to Cleveland.
Yeah, they picked up this guy, Kevin Plawecki. Actually from the Indians. It's essentially a trade for Leone. Moreland is back at first. And it looks like, I don't think he's a long-term solution there. It looks like they're going to have Chavis at second base. I think he's more of a first baseman long-term, to be honest with you. And then they'll have Lynn sort of platoon with him as a defensive specialist kind of thing. And, I mean, Bogart's endeavors were obviously set at short and third, and they picked up, who's the guy they picked up as their backup? Peraza. Yes, the Peraza will be backing up those guys. And the outfield is going to be Benintendi and Bradley and Verdugo. And so that going around the diamond.
And they still have JD for DH.
And they still have Martinez at the DH.
Also play outfield.
Yes, in a pinch he can. He's not very good, but in a pinch he can do it.
He's all right.
Yeah. So
actually, other than Mookie, the lineup is as it was.
Right. The starting lineup is pretty much the same.
As it was.
It really is. Which I mean, they weren't the juggernaut that they were in 2018, but they were pretty solid in 2019. The offense was not the problem. Let's put it that way.
And no one had career years last year except the Devers.
Right.
So that there's no reason why they could not, like Benintendi could have career.
I think Benintendi's actually going to be better.
And you lose Mookie, so you lose 28 homers and 320 average and all steals. Verdugo, they figure will hit 25 homers.
Right, yeah, sure.
The matchup for power.
Right.
And he's supposed to be an excellent right fielder.
Supposedly he has a terrific arm. I haven't seen him. I never saw him play much with the Dodgers. But yeah, you don't know that. But so I don't think the lineup itself has changed very much, other than the sort of the backup guys. The regular nine is pretty much the same.
Big question: starting pitching.
Starting pitching is going. What are they going to do?
They lost 3 of their starting. And they lost the number 1, 2, and 3.
They did. They lost the top 3. And who knows? Kyan Bloom came from Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay pioneered this whole thing about having a lack of starting pitchers. They went with openers and relievers who would fill in the middle innings and stuff. And maybe he has some kind of plan for this. I don't know. I don't picture any of those current bullpen guys we talked about as openers, though. That's the problem.
Right.
I don't really, maybe Walden, you could get a couple innings out of it at the beginning, but guys like Hembry and Barnes and Taylor, they're not opening guys.
You don't want them.
You want them in the late innings.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they're going to approach that whole starting pitching thing. And what makes it weirder, as we talked about, is that who knows what the free agent market is going to be like after this season.
Yeah.
It's not like, here's who's coming up this year in free agency. You don't know what those guys are going to go for now, especially because the team has decided to be sort of budget conscious, which is why the whole Price and Betts trade happened. Yeah. Who's going to be available on the cheap? Is the market going to be here, or is it going to be here for starters? We don't know.
We really don't have any. What happened to Johnson?
Brian Johnson, I don't know.
Where'd he go?
he's
not on the roster.
He's not on the roster. I have no idea. I think they released him. I'm not sure. And they have a guy like Ryan Weber, I guess, is sort of a fringy guy that they might throw into a starting spot. He had a couple good starts and a couple bad starts last year, but you're missing 600 innings between Sale, Price, and Porcello, and that's a lot of innings to replace. And especially Price. I don't know, again, same thing, I don't know why Price got such a bad rep in this town, because Price was actually a very good pitcher when he was here. Right. And I think, and people say he was a jerk and whatever, a lot of that was clickbait media. Yeah. If you ask his teammates, which that's what I take into account. I don't take into account if the writers don't like somebody. His teammates all said that Price is one of the best guys they've ever been on a team with. So, fare thee well, Price. I'm going to miss him personally.
You know what? Cooked his goose, the Eckersley thing.
The Eckersley thing, yes, because Eckersley was popular.
And Eckersley is Mr.
Hall of Famer.
And he had no reason to do that either, just to challenge him like that, embarrass him like that. But that didn't go down well at all.
Right. But and of course, still on the roster, and sadly probably will never come back. They do have Pedroia still, who's still working on his knee, and looks like he'll never play again. But he is on the payroll for another 2 years. So, but and
maybe Castillo comes.
Bring Rusney in there. But you know what about Pedroia? Hey, you know what? They paid the guy $585,000 a year for a Rookie of the Year and an MVP. I think they still made out in the long run, don't you? I think the team got their money's worth with him. Yeah. So that's sort of where the roster is right now for heading into 2020 or 2021. Who knows when it will be? And honestly. Where do they stack up in terms of the AL East? But that brings us to another thing that we were talking about.
Okay, we're running down on time, but we do have a special song we're going to present to you.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes.
But there has been some talk about changing the whole structure of the teams. Instead of having the National League and American League with 3 divisions in each, change it to a East, Central, and Western divisions to cut down on travel.
Yep. 10 teams in each division.
Cut down on travel and to
eliminate the pitcher hitting. Universal DH.
So that would be all the same.
Yeah.
And I won't go through them all because we do want to save a few minutes.
Yeah.
The Red Sox are playing the East. which would include 10 teams.
Right.
Now, I assume the playoffs would be the top 3 teams and a certain number of wild
I would
cards.
think so.
Probably
Figure that
3.
out. Yeah, 3 and 3. So work that out
But
somehow.
the Red Sox East would be against the Yankees, the Mets, the Nationals, the Orioles, the Phillies, the Pirates, the Blue Jays, the Rays, and the Marlins.
Right.
My judgment is that's the easiest of the 3 divisions.
Oh, I think so too. And I'm surprised the Braves aren't in the East. I thought they would flip the Pirates to the Central and keep the Braves in the East, but they didn't do that.
Some controversy.
Right, yeah.
Quickly, the Central is Cubs and White Sox, Brewers, Cardinals, Royals, Reds, Indians, Twins, Tigers, and Braves.
And Braves.
That makes no sense.
Right, that makes 0 sense. I would think they would slide Pittsburgh into that Central and keep Atlanta in these, but you never know. Maybe it's they may have some.
So that's.
But think about it. You have all your games are in the same time zone.
Yeah.
Every game starts at 7 or 7:30.
That's right.
No West Coast nonsense.
And there would be balanced schedules in
Yes.
which you just play the same number of games against the same team.
Thank you.
Now, all this business about interleague play, see, I didn't ever get a chance to see Ernie Banks play. Well, you can see him play on TV
Exactly. In the age of media, and you have the MLB package where you can bring up any game at any time, Mike Trout plays on the West Coast. We can still see Mike Trout play. We just have to turn on the TV and watch him. So I'm all for this.
And instead of playing a million games against just the Yankees and just the Orioles, this time you'd be playing, I don't know what it would work out.
Oh, hi, Pesky. We have a guest. Hello, Pesky.
9 into 160.
Well, it'd be 17 games against each team,
Something
and you
like
figure
that.
that's 17 or 18 games. And I'm all for this. It would cut down the travel, and some people are going to say, well, the traditional. Yeah, no. The reason there's an AL and an NL is because a bunch of owners had a tiff 120 years ago.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's relevant today. It doesn't make sense today. Why does it make sense that the Yankees or Mets are in different leagues? I mean, that's 0 sense. So I'm 100% for this. I'm 100% for the universal DH. I think that's the way to go, and every other sport has done it that way too. Every other sport is divided by geography. And
we would not have to sit up until 10 o'clock at night to see a game start.
Right, exactly, right.
Or in the West, they wouldn't have to have games starting
So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sure.
So that's just a theory. I doubt it's something that would come about right away.
Right.
But it's certainly a consideration. And in a time where we're going to have to probably for a long period of time be careful about crowds and travel.
Sure.
I know right now you can go on a plane, but you have to sit, no middle seats.
Right,
This far
right, and you have to wear a mask on the plane, and they're only doing travel is way down right now with their reduced flights. So, hey, 100% for it. I'm all for it. So yes,
just to make sure
we're going to mask up here.
We're masking up. What we have here to end the show is a very clever song dealing with the current situation. It's hard to laugh at the current situation, but this group called Home Free, a wonderful a cappella group, wrote a song about this situation, put it on YouTube, and we thought we'd add it before our sign-off. So we'll say sign-off.
Sayonara for now.
See you, Adon. We hope we do a next show with something more to say. Complaining.
And in the studio, not in the living room.
But in any case, I hope you enjoy what we've been talking about.
Take care and stay safe, everyone. Keep your distance and stay healthy, everybody.
Yeah. Take care.
If you search for friendliness, It might be hard to find, but for now it's how we have to live. Oh. Don't you try to second guess, 'cause you might just lose your mind. Instead consider the alternative. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Whoa, quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you. Stand 6 feet from anyone when you fraternize, and don't forget to cough into your sleeve. Oh. Better yet, use Skype or Zoom to help you socialize. Just stay home if you don't have to leave. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you. Can't find toilet paper, can't find groceries. Thank God for Domino's and Amazon deliveries. The only thing that comforts me is to lather, rinse, repeat with soap. With soap. When I'm binging Netflix, don't be too concerned. No, it's not the only thing I do. Not the only thing I do. I get Disney in the mix, and Apple TV gets a turn. HBO, Prime Video, and Hulu. Quarantine is such a lonely word. Everyone is feeling blue. Whoa, quarantine is hardly what's preferred, and mostly what I need from you.
Thank you for watching another outstanding program provided to you by Lunenburg Public Access. We're here to serve the community. Lunenburg Public Access is always looking for volunteers to help record town events, high school sports, and town meetings. Please consider helping us out today. To contact us, you can call 617-763-3018 or email us at lunenburgaccess@gmail.com.